definitely they're releasing political prisoners, Mandela and many others. The European Common Market is gradually turning into a unified United States of Europe. The whole world is changing. So how the hell can the United States be the only part of the world that doesn't change? There are no totally isolated systems. So I cheer up again. The United States is going to change very suddenly and dramatically, just like Russia. And nobody can predict when it will happen.
Or which way it's going to go.
Which way it's going to go, yeah.
Well, the way to avoid the doubling of information is to not have an opinion.
Well, when it reaches the point of nanoseconds, doubling, and relating that to, say, Einstein's theory of relativity with traveling faster than the speed of light, it's interesting to see the relationship of what might happen at that point. And then it keeps doubling also. We're going faster, faster. Time is dilating.
Yeah, Terence McKenna calls it the encounter with a transcendental object. That's a beautiful poetic expression. It will mean something after 2012. Yes?
Do you think that by that point we'll be able to assimilate that kind of information, or is it just going to be like the pure math that's lying around that no one reads because there's too much of it?
Well, that's doublings of a little bit of both, but doublings of information lead to new technology. New technology means things are possible that were impossible before. My grandparents came to this country in ships. When I go to Europe, I fly. They couldn't imagine that. Yet I fly to Europe a couple of times every year. In 1973, when I first read about the doubling of information that had ended that year, the first time that information had doubled in only 6 years, nobody I knew had a home computer. People who had anything to do with computers were using them in the office. Now everybody I know has there are people who don't have home computers yet, but I don't know them. Everybody I know has one. And
there's no telephone numbers anymore. It's what's your fax number?
Yeah. People are constantly telling me fax it to me, as if everybody has a fax machine. I'm going to have to get a fax machine so they don't start thinking I'm too poor to do business with, I gotta have one for self-protection.
They have mobile faxes that you can have in your car with your
Yeah, so new technologies will make it possible for us to process more and more of the information. There'll be breakthroughs on that level and on other levels. So I think the information will always be doubling faster than the human mind can keep up with it, but the human mind will be developing new capacities.
Well, they have speed reasoning. They'll have a speed mind conceptualizing.
We'll probably have we'll have brain-computer linkages and brain-brain linkages that we can't imagine now, but that'll come along with advances in technology. And meanwhile, the very controversial area of parapsychology continues to move along in spite of continuous opposition, raising possibilities that stagger. Parapsychology is about where chemistry was when it was hardly distinguished from alchemy. There are going to be great breakthroughs in parapsychology. Maybe it started to happen already with Bell's theorem. Bell doesn't like it at all. John S. Bell, who in 1965 proved that if the equations of quantum mechanics are true, any two particles in the universe that were once in contact continue to remain mathematically correlated, which means the universe has a kind of resonance in it in which all things are connected, as I said at the beginning of my lecture, not at the beginning of this presentation, but at the beginning of the lecture I gave earlier today. All things are connected. Now, there's nothing that's not connected to everything else. That may be the beginning of a true mathematical, physical, scientific understanding of parapsychology. One physicist, Evan Harris Walker, wrote a paper in '74 called The Complete Quantum Anthropologist, in which he suggests that just as there are local and non-local systems in physics now, since Bell's theorem, there are probably local and non-local minds. And then he suggests that every local mind is an aspect of the non-local mind, which means that if we accept that interpretation of quantum mechanics, which was suggested by Schrödinger even earlier, but not with as much detail as by Walker, and later by David Bohm, the leading physicist in England. If we accept that, then we are in exactly the cosmology of the Hindu scriptures. There's only one mind, and all of us think we're different, but that's only an optical illusion. I am you, thou art that, and anybody you hurt, you're hurting yourself. That's going to be really staggering if our society has to deal with that thought. How can we go on blowing people up and napalming them if they're ourselves?
It's like a harmonic convergence, in a sense.
Oh, yeah. I came back from Ireland, and everybody was talking about it. I thought it was a new rock group, the Harmonica Virgins. Yeah. Wouldn't it be a great name for a rock group? The Harmonica Virgins. I know a rock group in Berlin called the Klingons, who decided to change their name because there's another rock group come along in England called the Klingons, which is becoming better known than this group in Berlin. So even though they had the name first, they feel they got to surrender it so they won't get confused with this English group. So they changed their name to the Cloaking Device, which was stolen by the Klingons from the Romulans. You see, Star Trek is our new mythology. It's an international language. I read in the Irish Times when I was living in Dublin, every hour of the 24 hours of the day, every hour on this planet, there are 1 billion people looking at Star Trek reruns in various parts of the planet. So it's becoming the universal language. Sometimes when I want to describe the 8 circuits of the nervous system, I use Star Trek, since everybody can understand it. Scotty is the bio-survival circuit. McCoy is the emotional circuit. Spock is the rational circuit. Kirk is the sexual, social circuit. And the various extraterrestrials are the higher circuits. And it's a language everybody understands, like they once understood Greek mythology. Nowadays, if you refer to Greek mythology, you got to put in footnotes. Hercules was a very strong man, like Kurt Vonnegut did in Bluebeard. Yes?
Well, what are the Illuminati up to these days?
What are the Illuminati up to these days? I can't think of an amusing answer to that right now. Yes?
What do you think of the 2 English artists who claim to have been perpetrating the crop circles around England, and supposedly they had given out information to other people, and they went to their home countries and did the crop circles, and it's all kind of a conspiracy to fool people?
I want to know more about it. It sounds plausible, but
crop circles worldwide.
Well, I've heard that
yeah, but
in high areas in the Andes and in Tibet, so how did they get up there?
Well, the question is, there were so many scientists involved in the English investigation. Could they all be so dumb they couldn't figure out you could do it with planks like these guys claim? Would the planks really work the way these? I want to see more.
They tested that, and they said that it wasn't really true to spec to a perfect circle the way that the circles were made, so they discounted that. Whoever they are.
Well, anyway, I'm waiting to learn more about it.
Sounds like the mad fishmonger.
At Cornell University back in the 1930s, one student got a hold of a rhinoceros hoof from a relative who was into collecting African trophies. Nowadays it's considered barbarous. But that was the days when people were buying wastebaskets made out of elephant hoofs and so on. It's amazing how society changes. It wasn't considered terrible in those days at all. And this guy had a rhinoceros hoof, and he and some friends of his one night after getting merry on, I suppose, booze, I don't think they had any pot in those days at Cornell, they got this bright idea. It was winter and it was snowing. They got a clothesline. They hung the hoof on the clothesline, spread it out over about 40 feet with a couple of guys at each end, and they just dropped the hoof into the snow in their appropriate places, and they made rhinoceros tracks right across the campus. People woke up in the morning, and they were, what kind of strange animal left that track? So they called professors from the zoology department who looked at it and said, my God, it's rhinoceros tracks. So they followed them down to Lake Cayuga, where they went to a big hole in the middle of the ice, which these students, my God, the rhinoceros fell into the lake. So as soon as the ice